Our first interaction with the Jewish community in Fort Collins was we found out through my parents that we had distant relatives here. So we met Barbara and Rich Shikiar, and then we met Dave and Marcia Kaplan, and then just, it was a cultural thing, not a religious thing.
One of my earliest memories is at the Methodist Church in the small chapel, which was in the round, and we could take the cross off easily off the center. And I was sitting across the way from the Rutsteins, Joel and Barbara, and their two daughters, Karen and Pam, and they were just sort of relaxing with their parents, and I thought, this feels really good as a family place during the service, and we didn't have our children with us at the time, and I thought this would be something that I'd like to get involved with.
We came out and were touring around with a realtor. Forget the guy's name, but he was from Rhodes Realty. Anyway, and I said, so what about religion? He says, we've got everything here. And I said, well, he says, what did you have in mind? And I said, well, Judaism. And he thinks to himself for a second and says, I don't think we've got any of them.
Michael said, come, we'll get some bagels and lox. So I knew we weren't getting the bagels, you know, like Gibbs, but you know, all right, I was going to get Lender's Bagels. We go over to Safeway, and I said to one of the guys there, where's the lox? Points me to the hardware department. That was it.
You don't really understand your Judaism until you don't have access to Jewish institutions. And so I think that was the key thing for all of us who were involved in the Eretz group.
When I first came to Fort Collins, I looked in the yellow pages under Synagogue, and there were none. And somehow I found out that there were some Jewish families at the university, and I remember going to, I think it was a Hanukkah or a Purim party. Over time, after Barb and I got married, we met some other young Jewish families with kids, and we started to talk about forming a school, and we did that. We met in different places.
High holidays in the Square Community Service Room, or having services at the Unitarian Church.
While there wasn't a synagogue per se in the area, the congregation was already meeting, and meeting in different people's homes, and meeting at the Unitarian Church when we first got there, and then we met at another church. For a long time, I remember putting a sheet over the giant cross, and they were wonderful about letting us meet there.
We spent a lot of time moving around from place to place, from the Red Carpet Club room, the Salvation Army, the Unitarian Church, and one night we were, and I don't remember where we were sitting, it might have been in the Unitarian Church, and we started to talk about formalizing the Jewish community and making it legal, filing the papers to make it a tax-exempt organization, and it just grew from there. We were tired of moving from place to place.
We were this traveling school, and that didn't feel good. And also, some of the places where we met, our children would point to and say, oh, that's my church, or oh, that's the mall where we have services, or something like that.
It didn't seem right to have a community this size without having a place of our own. Our neighbors had been very generous with allowing us to have places to have our services and things, but it wasn't the same as having your own place.
And I got a telephone call from Charlie Kalischer. And Charlie said, John, do you want to build a synagogue? And I said, I'd love to, but I don't know much about electricity. I could drive a nail, if somebody asked me, and there was a pause on the other end of the line. And he said, no, John, I don't mean build it. I should have used the word fund it. and I said, I think that's a great idea.
So we formed the Eretz group, and the Eretz, meaning land, was the group that essentially bought the land that we built eventually our synagogue on. And because it was an investment, we had no problem with getting people to invest in the community. Those people formed, and they were nice enough to put the money together and come up with the idea and purchase the property. And
my chore was to go out and raise the money.
So we did that, and we purchased the land here on Drake Road. It was actually an alfalfa field, I remember it. It was part of the Wood West subdivision. And then we had the debate of whether we wanted a rabbi or a building. We decided we wanted a building, and we hired a designer, and he came up with some ideas. We also talked about whether we wanted a square box or something fancy, and we all agreed we wanted something a little different. So that's where we came up with the six-sided building.
We were very, very excited when Reed Rosenthal showed us that the architect and he had worked out a way that the construction would come together at the very peak of the building in the main sanctuary, and it would be a six-pointed star. And I remember how excited we were about that.
And it was just a wonderful feeling. The town was growing. This location on Drake seemed to be just perfect because the city was growing towards the south. And I just remember the day and stepping on the shovel. Everybody took a little turn, moving the dirt, and it just felt very grounded.
We were all excited about having a synagogue. I remember early on we didn't want to affiliate because we might alienate the people who were Orthodox or who were Reformed, so we didn't even affiliate at the beginning, and we didn't have a rabbi, but we had wonderful leadership. We had terrific people who were very knowledgeable who led services, and we had all varieties of services, and it was great. Everybody chipped in. I remember unlocking the door and sweeping the floor and cleaning the kitchen and setting up, you know, for the services, putting up the chairs, and it was fabulous to have our building. We loved it, and we were so proud of having a place.
The motivating factor really to have involvement was for the children. And I had to learn. You know, I never had to really know so much about religion because everybody around me knew about it when I was growing up. So here I had to learn so that I could teach. It was important to bring that into the children's classrooms.
My involvement revolved around things that affected my children, and one of them was the Jewish education. And so I served on the education committee with longtime member Yetta Rollin, and she was always extremely involved in the educational process of the early school of Har Shalom.
It's the lack of an institution in northern Colorado to educate our children and to provide them at least the opportunity to lead a Jewish life. And so I really think that the kids are a major motivating factor for us, or were a major motivating factor for us.
A parent's involvement in the synagogue makes the most difference in how the children respond to their Judaism and carry it on in later life. No matter what they're learning in Hebrew school or any other place, to see their own parents involved and concerned and passionate about their synagogue makes all the difference in the world.
So it was just something that I felt very involved with, very committed to. And once again, it had to do with the cultural thing and having a place for the people of the Jewish people of Fort Collins to be able to meet, to be able to socialize, be able to have our religious activities, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, weddings, whatever we could. You know, if you want something done, you do it yourself. So I just did it.
To me, it was kind of an interesting opportunity and challenge. Growing up in New York City, where the synagogue seemed to be run by all these old gray-haired people, and you know, and you had to know somebody to get an aliyah, and it seemed like to be able to build your own synagogue and be part of that seemed like quite a really great experience, and I wanted to be part of that.
I'm not sure any of us would have really been activists to the extent that we were had we lived in a city with a large Jewish community and an established Jewish institution. And it was really great, and I will tell you that it was really some of the best Jewish experience of our life.
Looking back, I was on the board for 20 years, and I could just see the presidents, that came up, it was almost as if little angels were sitting on our shoulders saying, this is who we need next to take it to the next step. And then our first rabbi, Rabbi Baskin, and he got us into a relationship with a rabbi, which we had to learn how to give up some of the areas that we were operating and turn over some of that to a rabbi, and how to deal with a rabbi as an employee of the board. So each growth experience just added on to itself.
The best thing that's come out of this is that Har Shalom is Har Shalom. It's independent. It's got its own thought patterns. We do what's good not only for Judaism, but what's good for the people of Fort Collins, and that's just made it special. It's made it very personal, very personal. I don't mean personal for me. I mean personal for the Fort Collins Jewish community.
We will always feel as if we're part of Har Shalom, even if we're not physically living in northern Colorado. And our hopes and dreams for Har Shalom and for the congregation is that it will remain viable, that children will return, new people will come and they'll affiliate, and that this will remain a focus of Jewish education and spiritual life in northern Colorado.
I expect that things are just going to continue to get bigger and better, and not so big that they can't be managed, but big enough that it would be inclusive and be able to meet the needs of our synagogue and how it's growing. And our younger daughter and our son-in-law and their daughter are moving back here, and I've already got her registered for preschool when she's old enough. So I'm looking forward to her involvement in the synagogue like our daughters were, and that my involvement as a grandparent and a supportive role.
And somewhere along the way, I fell in love with Judaism. And I have lots of people to thank for that, especially Rabbi Jack and Rabbi Svi. But here at Har Shalom, in the middle of nowhere, I have had the most exquisite education in the beauty of this tradition. And I'm very grateful, and I hope others will have that experience too.
One of the most, I think, blessed parts of the last 25 years is having our Rabbi Svi here with us. And this now is not so much for the children, but it's for me and for my heart.
But I hope and pray that that we could. The struggle that we have before is the same. We'll struggle again, but we'll do it. We did it before, we'll do it again, and I hope to be able to see that new physical structure and be part of it, and see the congregation continue to grow.
We're outgrowing this space. We are just busting at the seams here, and we really need to take it to the next step. And each next step that we've ever gone through as a community has been a stretch emotionally, a stretch financially, and this will be no different. It's going to be a stretch. But everything that we've encountered in the past, we have overcome and have moved forward in a deeper, better situation for all people involved. So I've got great hopes, and my blessing is it just continues.